Welcome, everybody, to Need Some Introduction. On today's episode, we'll be discussing the fifth episode of Smoke and a few other things we've been watching along the way. Anybody who's been watching or listening to our coverage of the Dexter show would notice that we did not publish an episode this week. Sona and I were actually together. Our families were vacationing together. But of course, we were vacationing and hard to even find an hour or two to record. So we did not. We were physically in the same place and did not record any content. But we will definitely catch up. We actually discussed the episode of the show. So we will put that down somewhere and publish it probably this week. Maybe it'll just be a 2-episode recap later this week. But today, on this particular episode, we'll be discussing Smoke. And Darren was on vacation and has been watching many things as well. So we'll be touching on all those things he's been watching.
Yeah, how are you there, Victor? I've actually am up to date with Dexter. So
nice. Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually really enjoying it. So yeah, I did miss your episode with Sona, so I'm looking forward to hearing you discuss the latest episode.
Yeah, we enjoyed it a lot, especially liked the reveal this week. There was this whole thing last week where it's like, oh, you could be this guy. You look like him. And that went right over my head. I just wasn't, seeing the clues. But probably like 5 minutes into this episode, I'm like, I know what they're going to do. And it played out exactly the way I expected. I was like, but in a good way. I was just like, perfect. I love it. I can't wait to see next week. So yeah, very, very fun episode. Absolutely. Yeah, so we'll be breaking that down later this week. So quick things I wanted to run by you, Darren. I know you're probably not into box office as much as I am. I used to really be into the box office when I was a kid. So I still follow it more casually now. But just since I brought it up here, first of all, I was talking last week how Superman, the numbers were good, but not really great. And maybe this film will actually play out the way they've anticipated, calling it this huge hit, at least in the United States, because it had a very good second week. So maybe that word of mouth is happening. However, overseas, and maybe this is just because temperamentally, Superman is so associated with America that the film's not really doing that well overseas. So it's going to be an interesting mix where it'll probably be very successful for the standards of a Superman film, recent ones anyway, in the US, but maybe the weakest of them overseas. So quite a mixed bag, but an interesting conundrum that the film is in, especially when they spent this kind of money. Although, by the way, this is much cheaper. So that's something everybody has to kind of take into their calculus here, that this is actually much cheaper than the most recent Zack Snyder Superman film. So it doesn't actually have to make that much money, because it's not like $400 million or something crazy for Justice League. It's actually about half of that. So. And another film we covered here, of course, F1, similar, like kind of the opposite of what I was describing. In the US, it really hasn't been that leggy or run, kind of what I anticipated, because I was so enthusiastic. And I'm like, this word of mouth is going to really make this movie play out for the rest of the summer. But overseas, of course, where F1 is much more popular, it is becoming a huge hit. Yeah, so I think that you mentioned that they were maybe discussing having a second film. I think that's probably going to be the case.
Yeah, cool. Well, I went and watched F1 again with my son, and yeah, I enjoyed it more the second time. So yeah, it's got legs, that film.
So how'd your son like it, by the way?
He loved it. Yeah, he's not really into the sport, but he just loved the thrill of it. And that ending with that flying lap, I mean, it's just so joyous.
Spoiler alert. No, just kidding. I don't think there's much of a spoiler alert. Yeah, I agree. It's such a wonderful, that final moment is like really what put the movie over the top for me. Such an obvious way to go. And it's one of those things that is like, it's obvious and yet so satisfying when it happens. So perfectly executed, right?
And I just went with the ridiculous character of Brad Pitt. I just went with him the second time and just went, yep, all he does is drive. We don't care about anything else, and enjoyed it a whole lot more.
Honestly, that type of character, I think personally, and I think maybe that's why it worked for me better than it did initially for you. I like that character. I like the Steve McQueen driver character. I like the man with no name, or the Shane character. Like those are the type of characters, because of whatever iconography it is. Like, I don't want to know too much about their background. And I think that's intentional, right? Like, they become this symbol. And I think that's what works in the film, right? Like, this guy, for all we know, this guy has not a single intelligent thing going on in his head, but he does his little routines with the, tennis balls and is jogging around the laps every day. And he like builds a cult around him, right? Like, I think that it speaks to that intentionally in some ways. And I think that's what we do, right? We, in athletics in general, right? When you follow an athlete, you probably couldn't have an intelligent, like not an intelligent conversation. These people aren't stupid, but I'm saying that they're probably so into their sport. You probably wouldn't have a lot of common interest if you hung out with them. You'd be like, oh, wow, we really don't have anything to talk about when we're together. But you could kind of, just watch them and be impressed by them. Right. So I think that's what we all do.
Yeah, that's really true. Like some of these elite athletes, all they have is
Yeah.
their sport and their time on the Sunday or whenever they have to perform, and everything else is just preparation for that.
Preparation for
They've got
that.
no room. Yeah,
That's
got
all
no
they
room for
do.
anything
And
else.
yeah, and you think like, what are deep thoughts that are going on inside their heads? Probably not much. They're just training and training and training and preparing for that being on stage again, which is kind of what actors do too, right? So there's the Brad Pitt and probably the correlation there between actors. I mean, there's many actors, Michael Fassbender, for example, Steve McQueen, and Paul Newman, of course. So I mean, like, and Tom Cruise, basically all these actors who and like athletes, right? Like this kind of preparation. So there's a lot of shared DNA there between these actors and athletes. Another thing I watched, I had recommended to you in case we didn't have enough to talk about on Smoke this episode, which I do think is meaty enough to probably fill the episode. But maybe we could talk about this briefly because I do recommend this, and I bet you it's going to be very popular. Netflix has a way of making these things popular, whether they're good or not. And I actually thought this was pretty good. I don't know if you got to finish it or not. I did actually finish it, but it's the new show Untamed with a couple of Australians in it. You have Eric Bana and
Sam Neill.
Sam Neill. Yeah.
I'm not sure if he's Australian or New Zealander. We
Oh,
have a
good
habit
point.
of
Yes.
grabbing New Zealanders and saying that they're from Australia. So I'm not quite sure. I did watch a couple of episodes of this show. You can spoil it if you like, but I haven't seen the whole thing. It is interesting seeing both of those do American accents. And I haven't seen Eric Bana for a while, but he's so good on screen. And I found out that my wife is a big fan too, almost as much as a fan as she is of John Hamm. So it didn't take much
To convince her.
to watch this show with her.
And by the way, I will definitely not spoil the show because I think I could review it without, and we can even discuss it without giving away too much. What I like these type of shows, by the way, where there is not only the demons that the investigator has themselves. This is actually something I'll be critical of. I thought Department Q was an interesting pilot season, and I don't think it's going to get renewed for a second season. But I think they wanted it to be like Slow Horses, and I think they had the pieces right, that the cast was interesting, but the mystery never resonated with the characters. Like all this internal turmoil that the characters have, they seem to be in parallel streams. And I kind of was waiting for things to come together, and they really didn't. And I really liked this Untamed because as he's doing the investigation, he's actually still hiding things about his own past that could be detrimental to some of the people around him. So he's trying to be careful in his investigation. And then you're waiting to be like, who's the bad guy going to be? And actually, as he keeps investigating, he unravels like a drug syndicate within the park. So it's like there's one crime after the other after the other. He solves multiple crimes in trying to solve the original crime, which I thought was really satisfying. I really enjoyed that. It made it always, you always had almost like a climax in just 6 episodes. You have like 3 climaxes, which I thought was really good. I found like Department Q, which I did enjoy, but more mildly because it was like 10 episodes. It was way dragged out. So for me, like these kind of Netflix binge shows, 6 episodes is like absolutely perfect, I think.
Yeah, it's really easy to do. I think we'll continue it. I mean, and the fact that it's set in such a beautiful part of the world. I mean, I don't know much about Yosemite, but it is just stunning. I mean, some of the shots almost look fake. They're just so incredible.
I know.
Yeah, my son is
El Capitan, that beautiful rock.
Yeah, I was going to say he's a rock climber, so he does indoor bouldering, and he's got a poster of El Capitan on his bedroom wall. So I'll have to tell him about this show. We haven't spoken about it yet, but yeah, just how good is the opening scene?
Oh my God, the opening of this show is such a selling point. Even if you don't stick with the show, which I do recommend, I think it's good. It's not great, and there's one thing that I kind of have a pet peeve for, although I think they use it pretty well, but putting a child into like a really, I'm not going to go into details, but like not only that the child has died and is kind of that death haunts the show to a large extent. It's not even like, well, this kid died in an accident or something. So something really terrible happened. So it's a way to gin up instant, sympathy for everybody involved. But I don't think it needs it, because I think Eric Bana, another thing here, Eric Bana gives a really good performance here. He is kind of like the strong silent type, kind of what we were talking about that Brad Pitt is going for. And he doesn't say much, but you feel it, right? He does a really good job, I think, in this role. A big selling point here for sure.
He's great. I mean, I don't know if you know, but he started as a comedic actor on like sketch comedy shows on television. And some of his characters were so iconic that he went and did his own show, and then he did Chopper, which I'm sure you're a big fan of, because it's just an incredible performance. And from then, he's just a superstar and just a Hollywood kind of heartthrob, or I don't know what he is now, but yeah, very watchable.
One of the things I wanted to mention is your experience of him, because we never got his show here in the US. I didn't see anything about him until Chopper came out, and I saw that when it was available, like on DVD or on Netflix. This is Netflix, where they used to send the discs in the mail. So it's like, I had gotten that as one of my early watches through my Netflix subscription when I was much younger. He was incredible in that. And I'm like, this guy's a comedian? Like, this is such a surprising. And it's around the same time, maybe even a couple of years after we saw Tom Hardy play Bronson. And those two films really felt like of a piece to me, and made big stars out of both of those guys. But he's kind of had an interesting American film career, because he's stopped making Hollywood movies. He's had some big hits in Australia, that series of films, The Dry. Have you seen those?
I haven't seen those, actually.
I haven't watched them, but I remember like when The Dry came out, I just like, for me, it only piqued my interest because I had wondered like what happened to Eric Bana. He's not really around anymore. And then that movie was like, I think it was the highest grossing film in Australia the year it came out, or one of the highest grossing films of that year. And I'm like, oh, I guess he's making movies in Australia. So at least he's still working, which is good to see. But I think he hasn't done anything Hollywood wise in a few years now. But both of those Dry movies, I think they just had a sequel to it just last year, and that was also available here on Netflix. So he's had success with that. And I guess this is where the relationship with Netflix began, possibly. I thought he did a really good job, and maybe this will be a way for him to come back to the limelight, because he's I think he's very talented, and he's obviously a very handsome guy, and he's aged well as well. And I think that maybe it's his time to be a star, because he obviously has that star charisma. The weird thing about this particular series is that I could easily see, well, given this world they've set up, you could have another season of this. But given where all the characters land, I'm like, I don't know if you want to have a second season of this. And I'll leave it at that. You have to see how it all plays off at the end. But I do recommend this. I thought this was a good watch, and very short. If this was like 10 episodes, I probably would be less enthusiastic.
Yeah, like I'm all for these 6-episode Netflix series. I saw that Sirens, and we continued it, even though it kind of fell off a cliff a little bit at the end there. But it's only 6, so yeah, let's see it. Let's complete it.
I pulled the plug on Sirens after episode 1, because I was like, I was like committed to it. I'm like, we have nothing else to watch this week, and it's only 5 episodes or whatever it was. But after episode 1, I'm like, I don't know, plus I had heard some things. I'd heard some negative reaction to the ending. So I'm like, well, maybe I'll skip it. But I did.
Yeah,
but good that you watched it. Not good. Yeah. Is that set up for a sequel? No, it's not a second season of that. Do you think?
I wouldn't have thought so. No.
But it's been very successful for them, by the way, even though the audience reaction, that's another weird phenomena with Netflix. And maybe it's just like, I think their recipe is they want conversation rather than quality one way or the other. They really just want to capture attention in the conversation. So Sirens has been very popular, even though most of the audience reaction is kind of negative. But I guess that split, opinion is actually good for viewership, right? And unlike spending $25 to go see a movie you might not like, you're like, okay, well, I'm not going to do that. But hey, it's just Netflix, just pop it on, whatever, right? You'll be part of the conversation, and I think that's kind of like part of the power of Netflix in a way.
And it really attracts these great actors like Julianne Moore and the girl that's going to go on to be Supergirl, and the other girl from White Lotus. Sorry, I don't know their names off the top of my head.
Billy, what's her name? She was in The House of the Dragon too. I forget her name.
Yes, yeah, and she's a great character in that. And they kind of kept me watching because they were so good, even though the story.
I like the whole cast. I love all 3 of those ladies. The series just didn't click for me.
Yep.
And I didn't even get it. And I'm also a big fan of Kevin Bacon. I didn't even make it until he showed up in the show.
You can't see everything, and I don't think you really miss that much.
Anything else you watched?
Oh, I went to see a film called Friendship this week, which is like a black comedy,
Oh yeah.
and it stars a guy called Tim Robinson who
Mhm.
does that. He does a sketch show called "I Think You Should Leave," which is
Yes.
very polarizing. I think he's a very polarizing figure. But we've seen a couple of episodes of that, and we really find him interesting. Me
Mhm.
and my wife went. She actually really pushed it. She bought the tickets. She was like, I want to see this. And she loved it. Very dark comedy. It's also got Paul Rudd in it. And it's like a man who doesn't really know himself. He's very socially awkward, and he latches onto this Paul Rudd character as a
Yes.
friend in like a midlife crisis, and things go very weird. And I'm not sure if it completely worked for me,
Right.
but it is laugh out loud in the cinema. And yeah, I definitely recommend that you check it out if you like that kind of thing. It's like a first time writer director, and I thought it was very entertaining.
Very well made. I've actually seen the movie, and
Okay.
it played here months ago. And I am also curious about that cast, just the combination of characters. And I'm polarized on him in general, even his skits. Some of his skits kind of wear on me, and then the next one, but I like that, having this variety. The next one will be absolutely hilarious. So I'm not 100%. I saw this in the theater, and everybody there obviously was a massive fan of his and laughing at everything he did. So he's an acquired taste to say the least. But yeah, I like the film in general, but I agree that it didn't quite work for me, and maybe that's because the version of the film I would prefer to see would be that it's almost like he's surprised that he has taken things to this extreme, rather than this version of him where he's so socially awkward all the time. You're just like, how's this guy even married? You know what I mean? Like I would prefer the version of him playing it a little straighter, so that we kind of grounds him a little bit, and then he like falls basically in friendship love in bro love with his neighbor. I also think it's very funny that Paul Rudd was also in I Love You Man, which is another almost, this is like a much darker version of that film in a way. So it's an interesting kind of other side of the coin for that.
That's right. Yeah, he does he plays that character so well, Paul Rudd. And yeah, you just want to like him, and then all of a sudden he's just a normal guy. He's not so special. I don't know why this guy's so enamored with him.
I'm glad you brought it up here, because I think it's about to premiere on HBO Max here in the US. I think this week, because HBO Max has their distribution deal with A24. So all the A24 films come to Max, and I think it's this week. It might have premiered this very weekend, and if not, maybe next week. So hey, anybody out there who wants to see it, it's brand new in Australia, but it's already about to premiere on Max here in the US. So a good opportunity for people to catch up on it, especially if you like this cast. I mean, there's a really talented cast here as well. So all right, Darren. So let's talk about this new episode of the show Smoke called Size Matters.
Size matters.
There is this very cutting moment in this episode where someone says to Dave, "You're so small." And Taryn's a little bit short. That's a little rough. No, I don't think that's not what she meant. but but where do you think that size matters here means? Do you think it means anything other than a little bit of a pun thematically within the show itself? I mean, obviously there is the smallness of Dave, or the pettiness of Dave, right? But beyond that, do you think there's something going across these different parallel storylines?
I think because he just has an inflated sense of himself in his job, and in how good he is as a fire starter, and how good he is as a husband or like a lover, where really and a writer as well.
Yeah.
He's just not there. He's just not quite where he thinks he is or where he should be. And yeah, I think that is one of the most cutting things that you can say to him.
There's also a lot of very small, potentially, or at least very damaged men across this entire show, right? You have Dave, obviously, but you see Captain Burke, Stephen here, who comes and shows up at the office to snoop around to see if maybe Calderon and Dave are hooking up. And he's very petty, as we've seen in some of these flashback sequences. And of course, we will get around to it. But John Leguizamo shows up and is incredible. I mean, that's the reason I love this episode, honestly. This is so much better than the rest of the show up until this point because he gives an incredible performance here.
He's so good, and I love how he's introduced. I mean, it's so absurd that he owns a trailer that's set up with pro camera and lighting that he rents out to couples to film their sexcapades. I mean, it's ludicrous.
And he monitors it remotely.
So he's doing live editing, is he? Like it's a sports.
Yeah, exactly. Sports. Like it's like camera 3, camera 4. It's very funny that he needs to, like, he can't do that later. I guess it's more effective to just efficient to just do it all at one to go, I guess. But that's pretty hilarious. I have not really paid attention much to the Tom York song, but I did pay attention a little bit to it. And basically the chorus of this song is "Who put all that shit in your head?" And it's like the telephone, and he's had all these different things. I guess he's talking about the culture and how it's putting things in people's heads. And maybe that is thematically in the show, the idea of this toxic masculinity. Possibly that might be what he's hinting at there. Aside from just the mood it sets, of course, it's very haunting. Did you give it a listen recently?
Yeah, look, I listen to it each time, but I'm not sure if I draw too much to the themes of the show. The pictures that are burning, they're all burning backwards.
Reverse, yeah.
I think, or in reverse. So I'm not sure if that means anything or if we're watching something in reverse. I don't know.
I think it just looks cool.
It just looks cool. That's
right.
I'm trying not to unravel the show because I still don't understand what they're doing. So I just kind of watch it as entertainment, which is probably not the greatest to talk about if we're trying to really dig into it. But it's just so entertaining.
This is what's interesting about this episode. I thought the writing and everything, the filmmaking has been better than most of the episodes before. For the first time, I'm starting to question my whole theory that this was all a construct. But there are definitely moments here that make it feel like it still might be artificial, but it seems like it's more believable now as just a narrative, which then really makes me scratch my head because some really terrible decisions and character points and dialogue and just some really silly things that happened earlier. I'm like, am I supposed to believe that the seduction at the, in the convenience store, or am I supposed to believe that is legit? Because I mean, I have many questions.
On that seduction, I mean, we came into this episode, he's sleeping in his office.
Yes.
Right. So that's where I thought, that was just a fantasy or something in his novel. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel the same way because how did we get from there to here? He pulls out his pants. He's not wearing bikini underpants. So that might be a dead giver. That would be really embarrassing if the guy walks in on him. Like, he's like, "Oh, sorry. This is what I sleep in." So the definition this week is chaos, a state of utter confusion and disorder. I'm not sure if this episode would be the one I would call chaos or that I would attach this word to. They continue this motif of putting the word and definition at the beginning. Like you mentioned, Goodson's sleeping in his office. My note, just what you said, was last week's scene a fiction ? Which of course we speculated on anyway, but exactly that. How did he get from her house to here? He wouldn't have slept over there. He's sleeping in the office. He's changed his clothes. Like what? None of this really adds up. So, like you said, I think that may very well just be a fantasy, or maybe it's an excerpt from the book or something that we saw. He's having the fire nightmare again, which of course he's been haunted by. And then Burke has shown up here. What do you think about Rafe Spall here playing Burke? What did you think about how he messes with him, saying like, "Hey, how do I get a good cup of coffee around here?" And then he starts grilling him about what's going on with Calderon. Of course, Calderon has warned him that she suspects that he might be the guy. They have this, dick measuring contest between the two of them. And then he's like, "Oh, I'm here to meet with your captain." And then, of course, the captain goes, "Oh, did we have an appointment?" He's like, "No, I'm just hanging out, seeing what's up." So all that was a lie. And then he goes, "Oh, do you want to take your cup of coffee to go?" He says to him, "Oh, I never touched the stuff." So all of this is just messing with Dave's head.
Yeah, I loved it. I love the power plays and I love everything messing with Dave's head because he's just too big for his boots and I love people taking him down. And I also liked when Rafe Spall then went into Greg Kinnear's office and he just messes with him. So it was just really well written. Yeah.
Yeah, I love Kinnear's character, just like not even playing the game, where he's like trying to do the same thing, and he just picks up the phone and like starts ignoring him completely, and like literally with his hand just like shushes him out of the room.
I love it. I do that with my kids all the time when they want to wind me up. It's like, I'm not playing this. No, I've learned.
Yeah, I like that. Very efficient. He does warn Amir, though, that say that don't back the wrong filly. I wonder what that means. Is he trying to undermine Calderon, or does he somehow feel that the Kinnear character is maybe protecting Dave? How did you read that?
Yeah, I did read it like that. Like he was protecting Dave just because of the history or the length of time that they've been together in the fire department. But apart from loyalty, I don't think Dave is that fantastic. And I'm surely Greg Kinnear, who is, I forget what his character's name is, but he's pretty switched on.
Right.
So I'm not sure why he's solidly backing Dave all the time, apart from loyalty.
I agree. I think that he feels like he's on it. And of course, he is aware of the fact that Ezra Esposito, the Leguizamo character, previous partner, had actually accused him of this. So and it's not even like he did it behind his back or there was a rumor. Apparently, he approached him with this, and they even has that conversation with Calderon last week, explicitly saying so. So the idea that he's not aware of this, he should be aware of it, and maybe that's what he's trying to hint to him, to be careful of Dave himself and how he might take the fall for that, for looking the other way. Because of course he is Burke very much knows that she is investigating him. I actually really like this type of writing where we know what she has said to him, and then he's playing dumb and he's in there with a completely different agenda, supposedly, but he actually knows way more than he's playing there.
I do too, yeah. I just feel like Greg Kinnear's character shouldn't be so naive about Dave.
Yes.
Like,
I agree.
Yeah, he already knows what's happened with John Leguizamo, and he's shot himself, and there's all these things wrapped up in that. Why is he on Dave's side, which I feel like he is?
And by the way, he knows that he's not doing a good job of trying to catch this arsonist, considering what happens this week, of course.
True.
So he chews him out for it. He's like, well, maybe it's because you're doing a terrible job of investigating. Yeah, so maybe he's needs to wise up. But yeah, I still wonder why he's been protecting him all this time, potentially, considering that he would be a pretty plausible suspect here. Why isn't anyone looking into him? And he knows that he has problems too. He said, like, yeah, he's not really that friendly. He doesn't really hang out with anybody outside of work. So yeah, there's a lot of question marks there as to why he's so loyal to him. All right, in Frankie's world, by the way, so things have not gone well for him. He shaved his head last week, shows up. There's somebody else who's been hired as manager. He's upset by this. This guy really can't get a clue as to, or a break either. Shaved his own head. The hairdresser shows up there again. Very weird shot they have here where the hairdresser is like in close up, and then she's like charging her credit card. The camera pulls back, like physically, you see the camera pull back to have space for another person to enter the frame. And then no one does. And then they cut back to Frankie. And I'm like, that was weird. I don't know if that's going to be something that is going to be like a reveal, like if there is some kind of alternate story that we're going to discover later on. But that was a very strange shot, and I'm not sure what it indicates. But she is definitely worried about this guy. So I wonder if she's going to start thinking that someone needs to look at this guy's, whether he might be this serial arsonist or not.
Yeah, that's a good pickup. I noticed that shot, and I noticed that the eye lines were really different as well.
Yeah, it's really strange.
Out from the kitchen. Yeah, so I don't know what that's about, but yeah, that's a really good pickup. The character playing, is it Frankie? I mean, the actor, he's so good. And seeing him in
Dexter, right?
I mean, it's just so different. I almost didn't recognize him because the characters are so polar opposite. It's very interesting. He's doing a really good performance in both, I think. But yeah, he's just getting worse and worse in this, dumber and dumber, just like almost like a zombie. In the way that he talks. And yeah, I think it's fascinating.
It's actually potentially like a derogatory way to look at people like this, because you can imagine someone like this. If you're a fry cook, you don't need to necessarily be the most socially adept person in the world, but like to represent this, if you have some socially awkward person working with you, maybe he's setting all those fires. I mean, I don't think that's what the show is saying, but it is really painting him in a very specific way. But again, we have, they're obviously completely different socioeconomic and cultural backgrounds. But here's another person who is like really thwarted in his wanting to achieve anything at all, right? He just another person who's been passed by over and over again and is using arson as a way to empower themselves. It really does make Dave seem really petty when you consider, like, if you think about this guy's really at the very bottom rung of the, any kind of economic status. Dave's, he's got a pretty hot ex-wife, to say the least, right?
Yes, you're right. And yeah, Frankie's character, I mean, he did have a dream of being the manager, even if it was a little bit waylaid, but it's always great to have a dream. But yeah, he was just so short of achieving it. It was just quite heartbreaking.
He's just sitting, he doesn't even notice the hairdressers there staring him down, because he's like hypnotized by the oil, because we all know what he's thinking. He's thinking about those 10 jugs sitting in his closet. So after all this happens with Steven going to visit the police department, he calls up Calderon and fills her in a little bit and tells him where Ezra Esposito, where he's located, a strange address, which of course we find out why it's such a weird address for him later on. But I do like the fact where she says, "Thanks, Captain Burke," when she hangs up, and he's like, "Last week it was Steven." I like Jolie Smollett's reaction too, where she just rolls her eyes, to this phone when she hangs up on him. He doesn't get a clue. Oh, and when she's leaving, that she's going to try to track down Ezra, she gets a meeting. This is very important. I almost forgot to mention it, but I can't. She gets visited by Emmett and is like, "Are you sleeping with him?" And she's like, "Oh God, no." Which is hilarious. He's like, "Well, you're in his book in like graphic detail." And he's like, "I can airdrop you the whole file." And she's listening to this file over the course of the episode of this terrible book that he's writing.
I just love the way she reacts to all the men in her life.
Yes.
So she's heard it all before. But then when this book is being recited, I love how turns it off, but then she always turns it back on to hear a little bit more. Oh my God, turn it off.
She could just fast forward. I mean, there's probably important details in there. Actually, there's a very important detail later on, right? So there's important details in there that she needs to listen to. But you could just skip past some of the erotica.
But it's so bad, it's good.
In a way. Yeah, and then Ezra, turns out she thinks that he's peeping Tom or something, but nope, turns out this is his business. He sets up his RV with cameras. And like you said, he has, it's not like he's just recording. He's got like the live feed going. He's parked outside with the computer, changing angles. It's very funny.
Well, it reminded me of like the cockfighting ring. It's just so absurd.
It's so silly, right?
But yeah. Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, once again, it's the big question mark of this show. I am starting to think, I don't know where you are on this, maybe I'll just ask you right now, but I am starting to think that maybe this is just corny writing on a lot of these details. And maybe a lot of these shows have corny writing, and I just haven't, paid that much attention to it. Because, yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't know if there's going to be another rug pull this late in the show. It remains to be seen. Where are you on that? Do you think we're still seeing part of this is fictional, or do you think this is all the story as is?
I'm so confused. I mean,
yes,
things happen where, like, she interviews Leguizamo, and then she goes into they get drunk together. She goes into his caravan or whatever it is, and she sleeps there. She helps him make sure he doesn't pass out or throw up on himself while he's asleep. She sleep. I don't know. It is very absurd that I can't help thinking there's something going on.
Well, I kind of, he calls her a knight at the end for that. And I kind of understand that because he was drinking a lot. But I assume this is his regular day-to-day routine, by the way. But nonetheless, yeah. I guess she didn't want to hear about it the next day. And God forbid something really bad happened. That I kind of bought. Some of the other stuff seems a little crazy, but it still seems more well-written. And maybe I'll save it for later when we get to it. Some of it seems more well-written. I mean, even the Leguizamo character in general is, and maybe just because he's so much better at pulling off this dialogue, everything he said was just very, very funny and might be very cornily written just like before, but he makes it sound like it's his voice, which is a lot of fun. And the scene with Emmett, by the way, I think that's another really good scene where just the way he casually is just like, "Hey, I'll airdrop it to you." Seems like it's a very savvy kid bringing the book with him as well.
Oh, totally. And I feel like he's got a lot more to do in the story as well.
Yeah, I think that might be bigger as time goes by. All right. So at the beginning of the episode, very close to the beginning of the episode, we meet a new character. Her name is Joy, and she likes to drink and drive. And we see her early on. She is right behind Dave at an intersection. And I like the fact that they are both listening to the same song on the radio. They're listening to Don't Give Up on Us by David Soul. Do you know the song, by the way?
I don't know the song, but it was great to hear Taron Egerton
singing along. Apparently,
I such a good voice.
Apparently, I heard there's an outtake from this episode did not use, where he does a karaoke at the conference. And he said that he was about 30% Elton John in the karaoke. So maybe it was too distracting. So they took him out of took it out of the episode. But we might have missed out.
Funny. Oh, I was channeling Elton John for sure.
This song is really funny. I think it was a #1 hit back in the 70s, by the way, and sung by David Soul of Starsky and Hutch fame. So this guy got famous for playing Starsky and Hutch, and he's like, I'm going to put out an album. And he had a #1 song from this. And it's a very cheesy, schmaltzy ballad, which, of course, seems to be Dave's cup of tea. This is the kind of music he likes to listen to.
A one-hit wonder.
Yes, indeed. And meanwhile, of course, the whole thing that's happening as he's arriving at the conference eventually, but everything that's happening with Leguizamo is absolutely hilarious. He loses Calderon and then shows her that he knows she's there by like pulling up and drinking out of a container in front of him, her the entire time. Like he could care less about like open container laws. And he goes, oh, wait, you're effing me. Like meaning like you are me before. And he goes, well, you're not effing me, but you could be. It's like that whole thing is just hilarious.
I just love that he's drinking the night before. He drinks first thing in the morning.
Oh, continuously.
Finds her. He drinks her all through the day and at the night. Yeah.
He's like drinking a beer and then opening the other one while he's finishing the first. It's hilarious. You can hear him cracking the can inside the car. It's so fun.
And that is probably his daily routine.
Exactly. I mean, it seems to be. I like how much he despises Dave. He goes, he wants to see his eyes plucked out and his balls cut off and put into a bowl of chlamydia. And she's like, I have to, and she says, I have to process that. And he's drinking the entire time. Eventually, he explains why he was so suspicious of him. He was always so close to the fires. He was always too good at solving them. And she says, hey, that's not evidence. It just sounds like he's a good investigator. And he mentions that that Dave had found these ignition devices 17 times, which does seem pretty preposterous that would be possible.
I'm wondering if this Leguizamo character is like a warning to Calderon that she
Definitely.
could end up like him. Yep. Yes. If she doesn't do things differently.
Yeah. I mean, it's not only him saying that you are me from before. Like, this could be like the road she's on in a way if she's not careful, right? He does seem to be like a piece of shit, though, right? Like this guy, I think that he blames Dave for everything. Like he says his wives hate him, his ex-wives hate him, his kids hate him. And the only redemption he could have is by putting things right with this Dave case. And Dave obviously, or maybe not obviously, he believes that Dave set him up by manipulating the trigger on his gun so that he had a lighter trigger and he ended up shooting himself. And very well may be the case, by the way. But my point is that, like, I think that this extreme drinking and a lot of the behavior, and for example, the falling out with his wife, all of that happened before Dave also lost him his job. It's just that the job was like probably the only thing that was keeping him somewhat on the straight and narrow.
That's right. And
only respectability he had.
And to be bested by someone like Dave must be a pretty low blow when you think that Dave is not the most genius of people.
One of the most messed up things we see here is that he tells Calderon to be careful. You don't know who Dave is. I like how she categorizes him as saying that there's something kind of likable about him. And he's like, no, he's not. That's that kind of surface level politeness and goofiness. I see right through that. It doesn't work on me. And he goes, you don't know who your partner is. And then he shows her this video, terrible CGI, by the way, horrible CGI, but this video where he says, hey, this is an initiation with my partners. I make you set some abandoned thing on fire. He has him burn down this RV that has dogs inside of them. And he loves dogs, by the way.
Just as an aside, do you know there's a website called Does the Dog Die in this? And so if you like dogs, you can look up this website. If you see a dog in a film or a TV show, you can look up this website and it will tell you what happens to the dog so you can decide whether to watch it or not.
I do find people are like way too into dogs. I mean, I have had dogs before. I'm not a huge dog person. I'm more of a cat person. They're less maintenance. I do like dogs and my friends, and I babysit dogs. I enjoy playing with dogs, especially if someone has a well-trained dog. I'm all cool with that. So I don't want anyone adding me that I'm not into dogs. I like dogs. They're nice. But I don't understand this whole thing where I remember where like the dog survives in Independence Day and people are like, oh, thank God they didn't kill the dog. I'm like, in that same scene, they killed everyone in New York City, but the dog survived. It's okay. I don't understand how one dog is worth 10 million people, but apparently that's the calculus.
Yeah, I'm with you, but it does affect some people very much. I was watching something with my daughter yesterday. Right at the start, there's a dog barking. She's like, "Is the dog going to die in this?"
Well, kids are always
not
kids.
Want to watch it if that happens.
Yeah, my daughter's like that too. If anything, like any kind of cruelty to animals, she can't tolerate. I'm talking about adults who still get upset about this. I'm like, calm down, people, calm down. By the way, I hate to burst your bubble, but on Independence Day, when they annihilated the entire Manhattan Island, there's a lot of dogs in those apartments. I hate to break it to you, people. A lot of dogs died when that bomb hit.
But in saying that, I did feel in this TV show that it was a horrible thing
awful.
to do.
Awful.
To get your partner to burn this down. Yeah.
This is really cruel. I mean, even if you don't like dogs, this is an incredibly cruel thing to do. And especially if you think that because he had these pictures up of all his previous dogs and he says, I don't.
Of course. Yeah,
so when you think about it, could you imagine that Dave has hung out with this guy, drunk with him, and he's like, this guy loves dogs. I'm going to make him kill a car full of dogs. Like that is incredibly cruel, right? I mean, he literally tries to risk his life. He like sets himself on fire trying to rescue the dogs. It's nuts.
Oh, and that's the reason he doesn't have a dog anymore, even though he's had a dog all through his life.
Exactly. Dave is like really, really sick person here. And I think that's what he's trying to express to her. That's an interesting psychology. If you want to take the show seriously in its psychological profile here, Dave is interesting in how he's constantly wanting to push boundaries here. And because imagine that these arsons are happening and you've done this to your partner, not only is your partner going to hate you, you really are revealing yourself that, I mean, basically you are an arsonist, right? Whatever you want to say about whether you are specifically committing these crimes. But if you have the profile of an arsonist, then when the next fire happens, you have to be one of the suspects. So this isn't the smartest thing, in other words, for Dave to be doing, but he's gotten away with it somehow.
He has. He covers his tracks somehow, or he just has this psychological supremacy over his partners.
But before then, he says, be careful of Dave. You don't know him well. Of course, now she does know more. She says really dismissively, that type of guy is no big deal to me. And she says that once things don't work out for baby, he decides to burn down the world. But yeah, you know what? It's not just him trying to exert some control and being a baby, which apparently he is, but it's also this, there's some cruelty here as well. Okay, Dave at the conference. So he's on the prowl. He's making eyes at this woman, Reba. Turns out later on that I was so confused for a minute. She's like, 4 years of marriage and you never needed a pill before. This is later on, obviously. I'm like, wait a second. Is this the other lady in a wig? What is happening? And then, of course, she says ex-wife specifically too. But were you confused here when you saw this?
It was a mystery to me, but I enjoyed the reveal.
Yeah.
I liked that kind of situation where you're seducing this woman, but we don't actually know that they know each other already. And and you're right, she's a hot lady. Well done, Dave.
Right. Although he insults her for not being 25 anymore. Well, come on.
Oh no, come on.
Neither are you, Dave, right? Although Taron Egerton, I think, is playing older here than he actually is. Oh, a couple interesting things here. Speaking of him liking to push buttons and push boundaries, it turns out we hear from this conversation, they have an arson inspector who is constantly patrolling because there was a whole bunch of fires set around the conference the previous year, and they're pretty certain it was someone who was at the conference. Once again, it's like, hey, how many times can this guy point his finger at himself? It's almost like he wants someone to accuse him so he could try to wriggle his way out of it.
Yeah, that's right. So we're supposed to assume that was him the year before, yeah?
Yeah, I think it was because I think he would be jealous. I mean, we see it in this very episode if it hadn't been him. And I also like the fact that where he's like saying like that guy couldn't catch the arsonist. He has like an IQ of 95 or whatever it is. So it's like he feels superior to this guy.
Of course. Yep. He's always likes to feel superior.
Unless he's with his ex-wife and not feeling so superior at that point.
He was distracted. He had a lot on his mind.
He did have a lot of like, well, he had one particular thing on his mind for sure. And that's the presentation he gave that did not go as well as it did the first time he gave it.
And who is the young upstart that challenged him? Are we expected to see more of her?
I would assume we don't, but it would be fun to see if he tries to seduce her later or not. I don't think he could possibly try to seduce her. His ego could not take that if she rejected him.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and she like takes him apart and says, "You have to stop talking about fire like it's some kind of monster from the closet. It is just a natural phenomena." Yeah, at first it seems to be working, and then of course she undermines him completely. I like how she like pulls out the fire extinguisher. She's like, "I saw you put that into the trash can earlier." So this did not work out the way he expected.
You can assume that he's been doing the same presentation for years and
of
years.
Course.
And people actually rock up to see it because they think it's funny or they think it's flashy. But
or they want to see people react to it in the room.
Yes, yeah. And finally he gets taken down and now he can't do that ever again in case that might happen.
To boost his ego, of course, it turns out this is all premeditated or pre-set up, I should say. Dave does run into Reba again later. He's got some pretty good lines here. I'm surprised he can't write better dialogue in his book. Although they've probably done this many times before. I did like, what did you think of that conversation they gave, which is good enough to be content? Can't be happy, just be content, which just means that you're just fine all the time. I actually thought this was very interesting, and it's kind of a philosophical situation that we're all in, right? When we kind of get to a comfortable state in our lives. And we obviously do have our thwarted ambitions. He, of course, uses a very negative outlet for those thwarted ambitions. But I thought the dialogue was really interesting. And I did start thinking like, well, this is better written than other versions of the previous episodes of the show. But then we get to the end of the conversation where he's just like, well, what's the difference between being alive and dead? There is no difference. You're not one of those people. I'm like, okay, well, now we're getting back into the terrible dialogue part of the show.
I also like those philosophical conversations. I mean, content's great. I think it's just going back to like the midlife crisis in that movie Friendship, where it's he's content, yes, but he's still trying to search for something when he sees someone else having something.
There is some shared DNA for sure between this character and the character in Friendship. But we I don't want to spoil that movie, obviously, because the vast majority of people haven't seen it and actually have an opportunity to see it here in the US now. But his reaction to when his wife disappears is so hilarious. And that date gone wrong is like shocking, like truly shocking. It's really you do not expect the film to go to something like that. Hilarious in how extreme it gets.
Oh my God, so shocking. Yeah, so sorry to derail the conversation.
No, it just reminded me of that part of the film. Yeah, and going back to that idea of that conversation, I think it's a very juvenile idea that, you're always looking down on being content. In a way, obviously they are doing some kind of role play here and they've done this before, but I do think it does tell us something about Dave, how he really has this very juvenile perspective on like, oh, I got a job and this is boring because it's, routine, and that he's edgy or something, right? And I do think that kind of speaks to his mindset in general and how he's trying to write these characters that, of course, are, preposterous, and him acting at this as well. And of course, when push comes to shove, not much Lothario when he needs to, deliver, let's say.
That's exactly right. He's very binary. He just can't find anything in his life that gives him that joy apart from lighting these fires.
I know. It's really pathetic. Anyway, it turns out that his wife really, dresses him down here, no pun intended, saying, oh, I know why you're having this problem. You got embarrassed by this girl. You're still thinking about it. You could never get over that. Any kind of time a woman embarrassed you, you could never get over it. And it reveals that this is how he's been the whole entire time. This is when she says, you're so small, which I think is where the Size Matters title comes from, at least partially. And yeah, you are so small as she goes to take a shower and says, get out of here before I get out, was really just another blow to this guy's ego. And he can't take many more of these. And then we get to the end. We see that Frankie has lost one of his containers when he's rolling it up the street. He gets on a bus with all these tanks. Didn't anyone smell the gas or anything? Like this all seems a little ridiculous, but it all pays off, by the way, because he damages one of those jugs and needs to replace it. And he goes into one of these shops where they have the black bags. So this could all potentially pay off in the end, this investigation.
He could, even though he goes out of town or out of the little jurisdiction. Hopefully they've spread the plastic bags far enough for that to be evidence.
Well, I have a feeling that he did that when he was still by his house. So he was like rolling it probably to the bus stop, I would guess. And that's when he tips it over. But so it's the bodega, probably the bodega he goes to regularly. And that's the reason that they give him the black bag, because it probably is the one he normally goes to, and he dumps out the milk. So even though last week I was just like, this is not going to work. He's got a closet full of bags already ready to go. But apparently he needed one in a pinch, and it may all have worked out. And the other thing that's going to be a dead giveaway, even more so than the bags themselves, although that might be a clue, is of course the fact that Dave knows right away this was personal, right? Because this guy's not in his own neighborhood anymore. He's going far away because he burns down the house of the guy who interviewed him for the managerial position.
Right. I didn't pick that up. That's why he went to that guy. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. I assumed he was burning down the house of that lady.
Yeah. They were intercutting different things. So I think they wanted us to suspect it might be her, or which of course would make more sense because his pattern had been to be in his own neighborhood. And then we see the couple with that the interviewer that we saw. Luckily, I watched the previously on and recognized them from there because they included a scene of him there. But I also kind of suspected it anyway. That's where it was headed. And of course, as soon as they say it's not his neighborhood, it's a white couple for the first time. So immediately you're like, oh, okay. So this is going to be a dead giveaway because somebody had some animosity towards this guy. Where does he work? And they're going to start asking questions.
Yeah, and you might be like, that makes a lot of sense.
They might be like, oh, maybe it's somebody who he works with, but people he works with don't live in that other neighborhood where all the other fires happen. So there's going to be a direct trail heading back to our poor Frankie character here. Not so poor. I mean, he's murdered multiple people now at this point.
Yeah, and those milk jugs really went up, didn't they?
Oh, they really did. He knows what he's doing. Apparently, he's gotten very good at it. Yeah, the house is burning very quickly. Interesting that when he gets the report here, first of all, the Greg Kinnear character, I just keep calling him Greg Kinnear, that Greg Kinnear warns him, we're at the end of your rope. This guy is taunting you at this point with such a massive fire. And, why aren't we made progress here? But Dave actually kind of smirks and says, oh, that is, a clue for me. So now I might be on the case. But did you notice when he's driving away, there's a convenience store on fire behind him? He set a fire because he's jealous of the other guy setting a fire last night.
I don't think it was a convenience store. It was that lady's shop that she worked at or owned. So at the start of the episode, that's why I really like these bookended type episode, because at the start she was driving to work and she was drinking on her way to work.
Yes, right.
It was either her business or just somewhere. And I reckon that's the same business at the end. That's why she was speeding to get there, because she'd got the call that it was on fire.
Oh, interesting. I hadn't made that connection, but maybe that's exactly what that would be. Yeah, that would be a real irony there, that he ends up getting to this massive car accident here at the very end. And that was an incredible car wreck, by the way.
Oh my God, so good. I had to replay that a couple of times.
You know what? We could do a lot of things with CGI now, and we see a lot of car accidents in CGI. As a matter of fact, I think it's computer effects when we see him inside the car. But you know what? You can't fake two cars smashing into each other better than just smashing two cars into each other at great speed. And it is still an incredible stunt to watch.
This show is so good, so well made in this technical type of stunts and effects and lighting and camera. It's so good. And I really enjoyed this stunt for sure.
Oh, by the way, did you hear the music that's playing? We'll talk about Dave's music at the end because he likes that cheesy soft rock. The love letter straight from your heart that was playing when the fire was being set the night before by Frankie which of course always makes me think about Blue Velvet with the big shootout at the end as they play that song. That's the first time I ever heard that song. So it's like kind of ingrained in my mind. That's a very seminal film for me, by the way. I saw that when I was very young, too young to see that movie, by the way. And that whole entire soundtrack is like embedded in my mind. But I think probably the only time I ever hear that song is the times I've rewatched Blue Velvet. So I maybe think of it immediately.
Interesting. I didn't pick that up. That's cool.
It's a great song. You should check it out. Frank Booth. Here's another digression. Frank Booth says, if I send you a love letter from my heart, you know what that is? It's a bullet from a gun. And then at the end, when there's the big shootout happening in slow motion and they're killing all of Frank's guys, Love Letter Straight from My Heart is playing on the soundtrack. So it's like a reference back to what Frank had said earlier. Incredible film, by the way, everybody. If you haven't seen it, definitely see it. R.I.P. David Lynch, one of the greatest geniuses of all times.
Yeah, I'm due for a rewatch.
Definitely check it out. Such a great film. Every time you watch it, it's great. Before that car wreck, by the way, we do see a couple things. Calderon has been called a knight, babysitting. And you thought that was you didn't really buy that. I mean, he's so pathetic, by the way. What a great performance he gives here. I love him stumbling out, like begging to basically help with the investigation, falling over with that bag of pills he's taking with him. Like so pathetic. An incredible, pathetic performance here. I hope he's in more of the show for sure. I hope we see more of him.
Yeah, and I guess she did feel safe that he wasn't going to wake up and do something to her because he was.
I think she was
so pathetic.
She felt he was pathetic. I don't think she saw him as a threat, especially as wasted as he was. I mean, if he stumbles over, she probably would have kicked his ass. I mean, she trains pretty hard, so and she probably has to. I mean, honestly, she's probably been in some pretty dangerous situations previously. Yeah, Dave is listening to Michael Bolton when he gets wrecked. More terrible music. Joy, I think, is dead. Dave, what do you think this sets up? Maybe that's the last question right before we wrap up here. What do you think this sets up for the future? Is Dave going to be in the hospital? Are they going to find something in the car that might be a clue that gives away Dave? Was he too close to the shop again? What do you think? Does this set things up for the rest of the season?
She definitely was dead. Dave can't be dead. If he's in the hospital, he can't be doing anything.
He can't be setting fires.
He can't be setting fires. It still was very close to that fire that was set. So, look, who knows? This show is so all over the place that it's very hard to predict.
Whether this is a bad novel that we're reading or whether this is just bad writing for the show, maybe I don't want to overanalyze the plot because maybe these things will be like he'll be out of the hospital in a couple of days. But I was thinking if he's in the hospital for an extended period of time, that would be interesting if we see that there is this first arsonist and then the second arsonist, they kind of have a feedback loop. What if he's in the hospital and there's no fires? What does that indicate, right? So,
and it would give him a lot of time to write his novel in the hospital.
He could probably finish that. Yeah, that's a good point. It ends with him being arrested in the hospital. Yeah, I think that leads things for next week. And curious to see how it all goes. I thought this was a really well done episode in general. All of it was really well done. The fire setting, the music choices, the funny ones and the sincere ones, all really well done. And some terrific scenes, some great scenes between Dave and all of these different characters. And like the highlight of the whole episode, Leguizamo just being fantastic in every scene he's in here. The only negative I'd say here is that Calderon, Journey Smollett's in general was kind of sidelined here. There was a lot of, she was investigating, but really it was just people talking at her all the time. So she didn't really get to have as much meaty stuff because everybody else really had some pretty meaty moments.
That's true, but she's had plenty of meaty moments in previous episodes,
So we'll see how it all plays out next week. And we have 4 more episodes. So I guess we're committed at this point. We can't back out. But next week, we will touch on this, at least briefly. But I think definitely we're going to see the Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Fantastic Four for some reason. I'm really into it. So, looking forward to seeing it this week. And I think one of my daughters is very keen to see it. She's been hassling me to get D-box tickets, which is movable seats. So I don't know if they're all sold out already. I don't know. I haven't done that before, but we'll see. I'll see it somehow.
Yeah, and I will definitely be watching it as well. And we'll talk about it. And I had a challenge for you, and I don't know if you've seen all the movies, and you don't have to, by the way. We can skip them, but I already have done this. I did this last night before I went to sleep. I found a list of all the MCU movies, which I sent to you, by the way. And I created my own ordering of them by cloning the list on Letterboxd. But I made it a private list, so I don't want anyone to see it ahead of time. Because what I'd be very curious to see is to go through them and be like in order, like what is your ranking? Because I have a feeling that we probably are not going to have many disagreements at the top of the list. But there's so many films that are like kind of failed experiments or just bad that I'm curious to see how we'd rank them further down. And it might be an interesting conversation.
Yes, I have seen them all, and yeah, I'll do some homework and maybe do a bit of ranking, which I don't do very often. I usually just have a best and a worst.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see.
It was fun. I would recommend it. I actually thought in general, I don't rank them, which is kind of what was fun about it. I literally just started to like organize them and say this one or this one, like which one do I like better? And then like the list kind of formed itself like a bubble sort basic situation. I did enjoy the exercise of it. So maybe it'll be fun to talk it out and just to talk about the pluses and minuses of these different experiments and like how the MCU has really most of the bottom ones are towards the more recent titles, so we can kind of talk about what's happened with MCU in general. We could skip the shows because I was shocked to see that I had no gaps in the movies, but I have missed most of the shows, so I don't think I have much to say on a lot of those. So although I've sampled probably most of them, we'll just talk about the movies and we'll talk about Fantastic Four and Smoke.
Fingers crossed for Fantastic Four, because I think the guy that did WandaVision, I think. I might be wrong, but I really enjoyed WandaVision. I like that guy's vision, so hopefully it's an interesting film worthy to talk about. Early
reviews have started coming in, and they are very positive, so it could be good. I'm very curious to see it. I mean, I've seen all the other ones. Might as well keep the streak going.
Yeah, and all the other Fantastic Four movies are
oh man, let's not even talk about those.
To write home about,
I'm not going to talk about those. We'll talk about the MCU movies only next week. Oh my god, if we extend it to all the other, oh my god, we're like 50 or 60 movies at that point. I can't, we talk about Blade and all the other films. It would be way too many films to talk about. All the X-Men films, forget it, way too much. Just the MCU, just MCU.
All right, let's do it.
All right, Darren, thanks again for the conversation.
Thanks so much, Victor. Bye.